campus actually, they're staying here. Yeah. Hi, hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Friday colloquium series, which we do every Friday 3:30 p.m. My name is Nazrul, and I'm very pleased to see online, even online, Anuradha ji, Anuradha Talwar. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. Uh, many of
Thank you.
you know that Many of you know that she has been a very leading name in our trade union movement in India. She had been associated with Right to Food campaign quite a lot, largely working from West Bengal, but her presence is there across India in many of the democratic rights, rights for rights to PDS and working with marginalized communities. What she's Anuradha is going to talk about, I don't think any context is required because the pandemic is everywhere around us. As someone was telling me the other day that all of us are either infected or affected by the pandemic. But we also know that for the communities, for groups, for individuals who were already disadvantaged, who were already deprived of some of the basic minimum necessities of life, for them the impact or effect was disproportionately bad. In fact, in my lifetime, for the first time, I heard stories from ground that people are not getting food for 2 to 3 days. People are just hungry, and it was hard. I mean, all the I mean, the pandemic and the subsequent lockdown, all these were extremely bad stories, extremely heartbreaking stories for all of us. But one positive, signal coming was that individuals like Anuradha ji or many CSOs, she's herself associated with Paschim Khet Majoor Samity. They were trying to intervene. They were trying to respond to the crisis. They were trying to organize and collectivize people to see that at least they do not fall below the safety net somehow. And some stories were positive stories, success stories. Many may not be successful. Many may have failed. So we invited Anuradha ji to talk about her experience of dealing with pandemic and the subsequent lockdown, and how Paschim Bango Khet Majur Samiti was handling the crisis and how they are doing now. Over to you, Anuradha ji.
Thank you, Nazrul. Thank you very much to Azim Premji University for having me today. It's a great honor to be talking to all of you. And it's also helped me to reflect on what we've done during COVID, what our organization has done. So that is another opportunity that has been given to me by your inviting me for this talk. So I'm not going to take too much of time on this introduction. I have something prepared. It's much easier to talk from that. So I'm just going to start. I'm going to share my screen with all of you and get going. So here goes.
Just 1 second. I would request the audience to type their comments and questions on the comments section in the right-hand side chat box. After the presentation, we would discuss those with the speaker. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll start. The big disadvantage is I can't see any of you. It's very difficult for me to talk that way. I'm very used to talking to people, face to face. But anyway, I will start my presentation, and I've tried to use a lot of pictures, so that at least you won't get bored listening to me. So basically, my presentation is about what we've done during COVID. And as you can see, the name of whatever the talk that I'm giving is Jaat, Dharma, Baad, Bhuka, Bhaat, which is basically saying that let's not talk about religion and caste and divisions between us, and let's not communalize everything. We are hungry, give us food. That is what it says basically. So first, I think we should tell you who we are. Who I'm speaking on behalf of the Paschim Bango Khet Majoor Samity and the Shramajivee Mahila Samity. So let me just tell you who we are first. So we are basically Paschim Bango Khet Majoor Samity. If you see on the right side of your screens, you'll see this two hands and sort of a man and a woman. That is our symbol. It's the symbol of our union. And we are basically an independent trade union, a registered trade union of rural workers. And on the left side, you'll see is this green symbol of three women helping each other to kind of rise up. And that is the symbol of the Shramajivee Mahila Samity, which is an autonomous group organization of working women. Both these organizations work very closely. Khet Samity is almost Khet Samity is half its membership are women. So, and Shramajivee Mahila Samity helps to kind of orient these women towards class issues and to also take up gender issues independently of Khet Samity. And often be critical even of a Khet Samiti's work. So at present, we work in 11 districts. That sounds very grand, but it's not really as if we're covering an entire district. We work in pockets in districts. So we cover 59 blocks. I've got all those figures there. 167 gram panchayats and 969 villages. This would be slightly outdated. It's not the latest figure because we haven't been able to get latest figures for this year. And at present, we have about 70,000 members. So we basically, these are Khet Samity members, and each person has to pay a fee of 20 rupees every year to become a member. And then as members, they have the right to elect committees, to decide on how the Samiti will work, what actions we will take, and of course to be to get at least some kind of protection when they get into trouble from the Samiti. And we have been in existence since 1987. That's the Khet Samiti. The Mahila Samiti, the women's organization, was formed slightly later in 1990. So we're a fairly old organization. We're 3 decades old. So we are kind of quite established in some of the areas that we work in. Now the context, as Nazrul said, the context everybody knows about, but still I'd just like to go over it because there are some things which are very specific to West Bengal. So one, of course, is the lockdown which took place from 23rd March and kind of upset everybody's lives. Then after that, of course, you had the migrants coming back, and because West Bengal is a state where a huge amount of our male population, especially, goes out and works in other states. It was a very, very big crisis for people in West Bengal. And then to top it all, we had a very bad cyclone this year on 20th of May. So just when the lockdown was kind of getting over and the migrants were returning, in the middle of that, this cyclone happened, and we again, and we work a lot in the Sundarbans area where the cyclone hit very badly. So again, there was this whole problem. And then, of course, there are the last two things that I'm talking about are basically things which are there always. And it wasn't as if the COVID or the cyclone helped to improve performance. We have a corrupt government, it's non-performing. And party politics are very important in West Bengal. And it's basically party goons who control everything, locally at least. So that was one of the other thing in the context. And then just to make everything which was bad even worse, is the fact that we're heading for an election next year. So 21, as you know, is the assembly elections for West Bengal. And it's a very tense election, not only because of the Bengal context where everything is political and very, very tense always, especially elections, but also because it's supposed to be a real game-changing election for the BJP. So they're putting in a lot of effort into seeing that they win this election, and the ruling party is trying its best to stop them, the TMC. So you have a lot of tension around that also. Now, just to tell you something more about the context, I'm just going to tell you about a few case studies so that you know what kind of situation people were in. So this is basically Krishna and Manju Das, who were released as bonded laborers in 2017 from Tamil Nadu, and whom we have been in touch with for the past couple of years. They are not in our organization as such. They're some just people we support. They're not members of the organization in the sense of, sort of being part of a committee or a village level group or anything. They're just from Kuch Bihar, an area where we don't have any work. Now, this couple was released, and their daughter, they were 3 bonded laborers, and they were supposed to get 5 lakhs of rupees from the government. Since 2018, we've been in touch with them, and we've been running around for this money, but we just don't manage to get it. And the impact on them of the lockdown was very, very severe. They had earlier lost a small child, and then just immediately after the lockdown, they had another baby, and they lost the baby again. And this couple used to live near, still lives near Siliguri station, and he used to chalao a rickshaw there. And the lady used to do sweep the compartments. Her children also used to go sweep the compartments, collect garbage, sell it, all that kind of thing. So with the lockdown, their livelihood collapsed totally. Again, they were in a rented house, so they big problem with that also, because they didn't have money for food, let alone rent. And then to top it all, they kept getting medical problems. One of the lady especially kept getting sick all the time. So it was a very bad situation for them, and we kept having to organize money for them or food for them. And we've done that about 3-4 times in this, in this. Every month we are having to help them out in some way or the other. Similarly, I'm going to talk about two other cases where three actually people from Purulia, where we suspect starvation deaths have taken place. We've done inquiries, and the first one is Sheikh Shakil Babu, who's a 10-year-old child, and who was from Para block in Haripur, and he died in April 2020, which was just very close to when the lockdowns finished. His father, and it was basically within a month of the lockdown that this child died. And his father was basically an out of work migrant worker. He's a painter who stopped working. They have no land. They have a homestead. They have a house to stay in, though. And very big family of 10 people, and mostly children. And the wife doesn't work. There's an old mother who doesn't work. And this child actually became the main earning member of the family. He used to work in a tea shop, and he had had nothing to eat at home for 2 days, or very little to eat. And he stole some stale food in the tea shop. And after eating that, he got extremely sick, and then he died. So there was basically a lack of food in the house, and this particular child died. Similarly, just recently on 18th and 28th of October, there have been two deaths in one family. One is Jyotsna Godai and her son Juntu Godai. So basically, they have two children, a wife and this old woman and her son. Landless family again, no homestead. The son is handicapped. The daughter-in-law used to work as a midday meal cook, but the schools are closed, so she's not getting any money. And occasionally she works on the land and gets 50 rupees. They have ration cards, they have an NREJ card, but we're not getting any work. And again, for almost for 5 or 6 months, it was 2 meals a day, 1 meal a day, and ultimately the old lady died after being ill, which again got them further into hunger. So looking at these kinds of cases, and then of course, as I've told you before, we had the cyclone Amphan, which added to the COVID woes. So you can see some of the pictures we have from the cyclone as to the impact of the cyclone, the kind of impact it had on people and their lives. And this was a kind of an added kind of problem in West Bengal, where this terrible kind of thing, trouble people got into. So though we are not an organization which generally does relief work, we're basically, a union which fights for rights and all, our members were in such a bad state this time that we decided to go in for relief work as well as start movements or continue with our movements on basic rights. Now, relief distribution in the situation in which we were in COVID was quite tricky. So I'm just going to talk about 2-3 experiences. In fact, there was a student from your university who contacted us and who wanted to do some kind of relief work. So he had identified a group of migrant workers who very badly needed food. So in Bardwan, we helped him we reached out to him and we helped him access some food. But his experience was that the local TMC goons almost, snatched away the food from him and distributed to people whom they wanted to give it to, rather than to the migrant workers he had identified. Similarly, there was another organization called Bhuka Mahila Samity, which is a very new organization of pavement dwellers. They had the same experience, where one woman who was very active there tried to distribute food in her area. She got help from another local organization, but again, local leadership was very annoyed with her because they hadn't been asked how to, whom the beneficiaries would be. After Amphan, in the Sundarbans areas, there has been literally loot of food. So this loot of food has taken place, and people have gone in, very well-meaning people from the city have gone in with food and found themselves cornered by TMC leaders, by various goons and all that, who have taken away the food from them. So for us, it became very clear that we needed organization. And the fact that we are an organized group and that we are a union already with members everywhere made it very much easier for us to do relief. For example, we were not able to go to our people who are the whole timers of our union, or the union leadership was not able to go to union to the villages. Despite that, we were able to select beneficiaries. Then again, because there was no question of centrally purchasing food or sending it. It was a logistical nightmare. But because we had local contacts, we were able to phone up people, go to meet shop, talk to shopkeepers over the phone who trusted us and who were able to supply us with the food. So it was a very tough situation in the beginning because we had to work remotely, and we had actually our own infrastructure had collapsed. Our house, our office was closed. We had no access to our computers. When Amphan took place, we were without water and electricity for some time. But despite all that, through on the phone itself, we managed to organize some amount of relief work. Um, this is what we distributed both during the lockdown and Amphan. So we supplied food packages, very small food packages, to about 15,800 families. There's a list there: tarpaulins, mosquito nets, sanitary pads. This was especially after Amphan because girls were in a very bad state. Then we got saline-resistant paddy seeds. The stuff on the right is all after Amphan, and actually after the lockdown, we just distributed food, nothing else, just food. And because we felt that was most needed. So we got saline-resistant paddy seeds also to put in Amphan areas. Then surprisingly, Birla Cement Company gave us 10,000 empty cement bags. We took those also. Then we got limestone powder basically, and bleaching powder for purification of the water and the areas. And then halogen tablets, which are water purification tablets. And how we distribute it is basically, as I told you, we had to get local people, our local committee members to these are basically tarpaulins that people are taking away, to identify the local beneficiaries. Our local committees did the identification, did the distribution, did master rolls, everything. And I don't think we had a huge problem in dishonesty or anything because we already have a setup which is already working on this. So yeah, this is Purulia where people have taken food packages. Here again, this is also in Purulia where people are taking food packages um, in the night. Actually it's being distributed late in the evening. So besides this, the other actions we took at that time was, for example, we did repairing of an embankment. So this was quite an interesting thing because the cement bags were given to us and we used those. They were very useful for us. And basically people got together, and some NREJ money was also available for them. And they sort of got together, and the union people got together and repaired their own embankments. So we were very happy with this work. And they cooked food together and ate together and also all that they did. Okay, this is another food relief distribution picture that I showed to you. Okay. What was interesting in the relief work, besides was the fact that we got a lot of help, which is amazing how. So, for example, we work amongst tea garden workers in North Bengal. Tea gardens were affected by the lockdown, not hugely affected, but still, it's a very poor group of workers. But they actually got together and they collected money for the Amphan people. So they collected something like 18,000-20,000 rupees, which is like they were selling 5 rupee coupons. So that's quite a large number of people they approached. And we were very pleased with that. And for the first time, we did crowdfunding. We have never done crowdfunding with our union. I mean, we're not very tech savvy and all that. But we had a friend who helped us. And it was amazing the amount of money. We managed to collect about 20 lakhs, 25 lakhs in just about 15-20 days. We collected that money. And it helped a lot in the Amphan work. And we felt very good about it because there was a solidarity that people were showing to us. The second bit of work we did was with migrant workers. So the first bit is the relief work that I've talked about. Second bit of work that we did was with migrant workers. Now, this is again something, I mean, our union has a number of people who migrate. A number of the families who are members of the union, many of the men stay outside. So we started getting distress calls. So there was very little we could do at that time. And also we managed to form a group of volunteers because it needed people who could be on the phone, who could speak Hindi or English, because you had to talk to governments in other states or officials in other states or people in other states. And our members are all Bengali speaking. So there was this huge problem. So we managed to get volunteers who worked with us, who responded on the phone. And it was amazing. I mean, I think there's been a lot of experience in the APU itself with Rajendran and all working on this issue. But it was amazing how civil society came forward, and I think civil society was more responsive than the government. Wherever we wanted, if there was a person in Maharashtra who needed help, it was much easier to just go to an NGO or to some other union and tell them to help rather than to go to the government. In some states, the government was responsive. In Kerala, the government was responsive. Actually, Maharashtra was not so bad. Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, you couldn't get anybody at all. Delhi, civil society responded very well. And so we managed to get help to people. And similarly, in Bengal, we helped people who they were intrastate migrants, people from Purulia who had got stuck in Calcutta because of the lockdown. And there were a lot of people from Jharkhand. So we responded to them in Calcutta. And again, there was a kind of a very informal network. If you knew that somebody was in one place, I could phone up a friend or an organization and say, please, unko thoda khana pahuncha do, please get them some food because they're in a bad state. And people responded very well. So the issues that we helped was with food, but surprisingly, we didn't spend a single penny on food. Other people donated food to us. We didn't have to spend any money on that. We helped in transportation home. Again, this was not money. This was basically information. And we did a lot of campaigning with the government because the West Bengal government was not allowing trains in. I don't know if our campaign worked or not, but we wrote, I don't know how many letters and how many people we phoned up just to see that people could come home. Then there was also wage theft. So in some places, we managed to get people their wages in a couple of cases. And even now, we're following up cases where people have to get their wages. And there was a whole group from Jharkhand whom we helped to go back. And the Jharkhand Right to Food campaign people helped us in that. Now, in the process, what has happened is that we have set up a migrant workers cell. So now people are going back. The people who had come to Calcutta are now going back. We are trying to help them and keep in touch with them. So that once they are, so we're making migrant worker cards for them, and we're ensuring that they keep in touch with us, so that if they get into a crisis again, wherever they are, they kind of are in touch with us. And we hope, gradually, I think a lot of other organizations, other unions and NGOs and all also are working on this issue. We hope to network with them and get some kind of a collective thing going, where ultimately we should be able to talk about migrant rights also, not just response to crisis. And anyway, so there's a number here which is 9,090. That is the number of workers we helped in this way. Okay. Then the third bit of work that we did was actually, which is our mainstream work, which is our main work, which is struggling for the right to food and work. So this is a very important part of our work. As an agricultural workers union, our people are very hungry and they require work also. And they're unemployed for a large part of the year, our members. And hunger and nutrition is definitely a very major problem for us, for our members. So we started, firstly, we are members of the National Right to Food campaign, and we have a strong state level campaign also. So together with them, we were doing writing, petitioning for more food, free rations, all that kind of thing. Those demands we kept raising. Also for NREGA, for expansion of work, raising of wages, paying wages in times. So this was basically campaigns on the issues that were important for us. And we did press releases, we did WhatsApp campaigns, we did try to get signatures, all that. So as results, I think one of the things that happened was that the state government extended there was a scheme that it expanded that scheme. It used to give 2 kgs per head to about 1.5 crore people. I don't know whether it was due to our campaign or not, but definitely during that time only, they decided to give free food to these people also. Then a number of people didn't have ration cards or were in the process of getting ration cards. So there was a whole food coupon thing we started for them. And our phone numbers acted as helplines at that time for rations. And people used to call up at all odd hours. Firstly, wanting to know what quantity they were supposed to get, how to get a ration card. And because we did a lot of work on quantity as to what quantity people should get, I think we were able to stop pilferage. And this was not just in the rationing system, but also in the midday meal scheme and the ICDS, where food was being given. Dry food was being given instead of the cooked meals. So this, I think, I've said nil pilferage. I'm sure it's not nil. There must have been some amount, even where we're working, there must have been some amount of problem happening. But I think we were able to stop the siphoning off of food grains to a large extent. Then one of the things that we've done over this last few months is since June, almost every month we've had some kind of a day of mobilization. So the purpose of the day of mobilization was to change the discourse from communal issues to survival worker issues. We're having a very strong campaign by the BJP here right now. And the TMC and the BJP are both into very, very kind of, I would say, non-issues and fighting over those kinds of things. And somehow the other parties are not being able to bring out people's issues on the ground. So one of the reasons for this day of mobilization was to change discourse. And the second was we didn't want our members to become, relief recipients. We wanted our members to feel that they had agency and they could change things. So this is another reason why we did it. A third reason was that this whole social distancing thing, not being able to have meeting, not being able to travel, not being able to meet each other was actually leading to a breakdown of the union. So this day of mobilization was one way of connecting everybody with each other. And because it was basically the social media, we did not organize large meetings. We organized everything at the village level, or at the most people would go to the block or the panchayat and groups of maybe 15, 20, sometimes 100 also, but very small groups. So this was kind of a way of ensuring, because everybody took action on the same day and everybody has become very fond of WhatsApp, they exchange pictures. So they felt that they were part of a movement. And the last thing was that there was definitely an attempt by the powers that be, whether it be political party goons or the bureaucracy or the police, to kind of shrink the space in which you can protest. So this was one way of pushing back and saying that we have to, this is our space and we still have the right to protest. And of course, obviously, the last thing was that we were trying to, get rights and benefits for people. This is one of the days. I'm just going to give examples of the days that this is the first day, which was the day of mourning for lockdown deaths, which was on June 1st. This is the first time we mobilized at the All India level. So basically, one of the things, this is one of the posters that we used, this Shramajivee Dabi, the one with the black fist. It's basically saying that we want to stay. This is a very old slogan from our union, which says that Grame Thagbo, Grame Khadbo, Vite Mati Chadbo Na. That means I will work in my village, I will stay in my village, I will not leave my village. Give me work in my village itself. So we felt that in terms of the lockdown and the effect it had on workers, this was a slogan which was very important. And it really became, once more people started, it became a very popular slogan for our union. So this is the kind of thing, this is one small group in the tea gardens who actually did a demonstration on that day. This is the second. I'm just going to give you one picture for each day. We have lots and lots of pictures, but it was taking a lot of time to sort them out and put them. So I just tried to take one or two pictures for each thing. This is basically on the 29th of June. We did an NREG Adhikar Divas. We focused on NREG demands, where we focused on basically the fact that people should get 200 days of work, and for each individual, and 600 rupees wages, and only locally planned work should be implemented, because we felt that a lot of energy money was going for other kinds of things. This is basically at an NREG work site where people have stopped work and started protesting. So basically people, what they were doing was basically they were protesting and taking a picture or giving a deputation and sort of raising slogans and all that at that stage. So from along with this, of course, there was also this fight for work to get more and more NREG work. So I've just done a calculation for 9 GPs of Purulia district, where we got 28,995 days of work from April to August. Our activists seem very satisfied with that. I'm not sure whether it's good. I'm sure compared to other states, it's very little. But from our point of view, it was one of the ways of combating hunger and combating the effects of the lockdown. And also in this process, what happened was there were certain breakthroughs that we made. So, like for example, in one place, Jitujuri GP in Manbazar block, where a woman activist was there, a woman volunteer was there from our union, who had very newly come up and started working. She was from a family which was associated with the CPM, and which definitely was not going to get work from the government, but they managed to get work, and continuously they're getting work. So this struggle helped her to do that. Similarly, in another block in Purulia, in another village, people had not got work for 2-3 years, because there was this constant. I think the Anchal was the TMCs, and the people were BJP, and they said we will not work with the TMC. So TMC BJP leadership was constantly fighting with each other, and people were not getting work. And in fact, on the day finally work was sanctioned for the people, on the day that work started, the police had to come in and the BJP people threatened the workers that if you go and work today, we will not allow you to be in the village at all. Despite that, the workers got together and worked there. And I couldn't find those photographs, but we have photographs of the police in the background and the video talking to the political leaders in the background. And our members are happily carrying on with their work. They're not bothering about that. They're just interested in their work. They're just carrying on with that. This is Jitu Judi, the place I was talking about, the other GP where a woman activist got them work for the first time. Then we had something called, we celebrated Independence Day as the Khadya Suraksha Divas, where we basically threw back at the Prime Minister his call for one nation, one ration, one country, it says one nation, one ration card. And so we said we also want one nation, one ration card, but everybody should get the same rations then, and everybody should get much more than what the government is giving them. And in the tea gardens, we basically celebrated this particular day as saying that we are still slaves, because tea garden workers get actually very, very low wages. So it's like slavery wages. So we said that after 74 years of independence, we are still slaves. Similarly, then we had other days also, like from 9th to 12th, the whole Right to Food Network in West Bengal, 9th to 12th of September, celebrated a week of action. Just on the 22nd, we've had a National Day of Action again because the government is withdrawing its rations. And on the 26th of November, we work to support the general strike. So in this way, every month we've tried to do something so that our people are, actively involved in the work, and the union stays alive. This is the 22nd November National Day of Action. This is our poster, which is basically I've used the same slogan, Jaat, Dharma, Baad, Bhuka, Bhaat. That's a slogan that we've used for the talk also today. This is wallings that this is another activity they took up, doing wall writing, putting up posters, and we're trying to ensure that every village has a wall where the union can do its writing. So we're trying to occupy walls, and COVID is helping us do that also. Okay, this is a very, I'd like to talk about this particular thing, which is a very innocuous looking thing. It's about 8-10 women saluting a national flag on 15th of August. But it was unimaginable the kind of trouble these women got into because of that. So this was basically in Purulia. This particular thing happened in Purulia. In Purulia, from June till September, we faced a lot of repression. So, the fact that we got into a movement also leads to a lot of problems for us. So basically in Purulia, it was, the union became very popular, and we had a huge upsurge in our membership and a lot of work, NREG work we were doing. Because of that, the powers that we got upset, and suddenly a police investigation was started against us for being Maoists. And this is despite the fact that we've been working in Purulia for the last 20 years, and the administration knows us very well. So obviously, I think we later came to understand that the political leadership decided we were disturbing them. And so one by one, each of our activists was called up, each of our whole timers, each of the leaders in the union were called to police stations and grilled and grilled and grilled. And 2 or 3 times there were arrests made, and people were kept from morning till night, and we had to frantically call, talk to this person, talk to that person, get the person released. Luckily for us, no cases were filed. And our problem and our fear at that time was that with the way in which courts were functioning, because courts were practically non-functional at that time, if anybody was to get into jail, it would be difficult to get bail for them also. So we were quite, upset about that. Finally, we managed to kind of convince the administration. We managed to convince a minister who has known us for a long time, that this is not the kind of work we're doing. And we got him to inaugurate a food relief program in Purulia. And finally, I got the administration involved in the program. So now that has stopped, and we are back to demanding work and doing whatever work. But this kind of repression was also there, and especially in certain areas. So we had to deal with that also at times. Okay, and now other things that we have been doing. I'm just going to talk about that also. So one is the health issue. So obviously, COVID and health, and we had to talk about that. So we did campaigns on these masks and things like that. We did educational work on that. We had posters and WhatsApp messages and all about that. And but the problems we found was, one is that the non-COVID health services totally broke down. And we in the tea garden areas, 3 people we know died only because of lack of treatment, because there was no transport available. They couldn't be taken to a hospital properly. And then we had this whole problem of referrals. Things were not working there, people wanting to come to Calcutta, but no trains, nothing, to move and to actually come and get yourself, show yourself to a proper doctor. Huge problem, especially from North Bengal, because the North Bengal health system seems to have totally collapsed. And the last thing that we did on health was, there's something called there's a joint doctors forum here. There's a health service association here. We campaigned along with them from time to time to on the whole response of the government on COVID. So, for example, we had the Durga Puja here, and there was a lot of fear that the pujas, it would be, there would be a lot of mixing and COVID would increase. There would be an upsurge in COVID. So we campaigned a lot on that. And luckily, and the Health Service Association people, the doctors also filed a case in the High Court. Luckily for us, there was a positive court order. And pujas this time was very, very muted. And Kali Puja, Diwali was even more muted. And I think this health campaign, not by us solely, but by the doctors, and where we just participated a little bit, also helped a lot. Then another thing that we had to deal with was corruption after Amphan. This was widespread corruption, and a lot of money was being stolen of the relief money that was coming for people who were affected by Amphan. And this was in both in South and North 24 Parganas. So here you can see a protest in South 24 Parganas. So I have stories from our union of forcing panchayat members who have stolen money to actually, kaan pakad ke, punish them with holding their ears, and public shaming of these people. Some places money has been returned, some places hasn't been returned. But this was kind of a protest that went on at that time. The other thing that we had an experience with was with Shalishi, Shalishi is a kind of a mediation that we do on domestic violence cases. Our Mahila Samity handles about 250 to 300 cases in 6 months, generally. So, but this totally broke down during COVID, and we got only 56 cases in these 6 months. And even the 56 this is basically it's a mediation where you have say 15-20 people from the girl side coming, 15-20 people from the man coming. It's a domestic violence case. So both parties bring their kind of friends and everybody sits down and discusses the whole issue. So dealing with crowd was a problem. I mean, our activists didn't know where to get people to sit because they were frightened about the COVID thing also. And finding a place where we would be allowed to sit was also a problem. And it was a big problem for women to come out and complain in this particular situation, with the total breakdown of the transportation system and all that. And I'm sure, I mean, I haven't looked at it very closely, but from other organizations also I have heard that the whole issue of domestic violence was pretty severe during this entire crisis. But definitely there were very few cases coming to us. It was very surprising that such few cases were coming. It was obviously because of the breakdown and not because COVID caused lowering of the violence. Okay, this is another thing, which is an anti-liquor. The anti-liquor movement also became strong during this period. And the reason was that the government decided to increase its revenues by allowing free sale of liquor. So even when the lockdown was there, liquor shops were open. So the women got very angry about it. And we had lots of experiences where women went and broke liquor dens. And I mean, I could give you a list of the places, but I don't think it will make sense because they're village level kind of things where this anti-liquor movement took place very strongly. Then the advantage of the crisis was, everything has its advantage. The advantage of the crisis was that people were open to new methods now, new techniques. So organic farming and all, people have not talked about, indigenous seeds and all that. Our people have been quite resistant to it. But now we're finding that, for example, these women that you see, we've started doing kitchen gardens with as a food supplement, and also because we can push in organic farming and people are receptive to it. So women have started, we have some 4,000 or 5,000 women and men also, I think, who are doing setting up kitchen gardens for themselves. So it's basically a way of saying that we're not going to go to the market, we're going to try and get out of a market which is very exploited. And what you see, the other picture you see is of the saline-resistant paddy, which has done very well. And again, this was, a system where you're not using fertilizers, not using chemicals. and the seeds were also indigenous seeds. So we were able to popularize this because of the COVID crisis. Here, this is another picture of this kitchen garden that we're doing. We also try and tell people that even if you don't have space, grow things in pots and in whatever plastic bags or whatever you can find. That is also proven to be quite popular. And then another thing that we're trying to do is, I don't know how successfully we'll do it. We want to get our members out of the market. We find the market very exploitative because our members produce things which are sell at very low rates, and then they consume things which are given to them at very high rates. So they're losers from both sides. So we're trying to see if we can do something where our own people can manufacture for our own. We are the producers also, and we are the consumers also. So we have this. This is a picture of a weaver. So this is basically from an area called Phulia, where the weaving industry is practically in a state of collapse. Before COVID also it was in a state of collapse. Now it's gotten even worse. So we were wanting to make masks for our people. So we had, sort of, first we thought we'd buy masks from the bazaar. Then we said, no, we've got self-help groups of women. Let's get them to stitch. Then we thought, why should we buy cloth from the bazaar? Let's get our own cloth made. So now we have weavers making cloth and our self-help groups making the masks from the cloth. So it's like a chain where everything is manufactured within this thing. And we had some money from our relief money to make the masks. So this capital is also there. And we're hoping that the weavers will now extend to other things like, making cheap saris, making lungis, gamchas, which are used by agricultural workers and, which are of everyday use, not fancy stuff. And then we'll try and sell it within the union. Similarly, we have two tea gardens which are closed and abandoned by the management, where our members have taken over the tea gardens. So they basically pluck and sell green leaves. So as value addition, there's something called Hath Malai Chai, which is basically handmade tea. Setting up a tea factory is too expensive for our members, but handmade tea they can make. So we started making handmade tea in October, November. That was really the tail end of the plucking season. But now we're hoping once the plucking season starts in January, February, we may be able to buy a small machine and get these tea gardens to actually make tea also. And again, this tea would be low-end tea, which we will sell to our own members and to tea shops in the villages that we work in. Similarly, we've got this thing for vegetables also, where we're trying to get one group of farmers to grow the vegetables in Raidighi. And we have some urban members now in a place called Nuihati. So we're going to try and sell those vegetables through these. So these are basically unemployed youth who would therefore get work, who are unemployed due to COVID and would get work of selling these vegetables. And the farmers, of course, would get a better market than we would otherwise. So basically, I'm coming to the end of my talk, which is that basically I wouldn't have thought about it, or we wouldn't have thought about it 6 months ago or in March when the crisis happened. But actually, crisis also becomes an opportunity because you have to innovate. Everything is, everything collapses. So you have to find ways of doing things. So for us, we were not very tech savvy people, and I would have never, if you had told me a year back that I'd be talking to people on a Zoom conference without looking at them on the internet, I would have said nonsense. I can never do it. But well, I'm doing it now. So we've adapted to social media, not just me, but a lot of our members have started using phones, smartphones, or if they had smartphones, they have WhatsApp groups. So it's become a very quick way of giving information to people. We've got onto Facebook. They also use Facebook now, so it's helped us and to adapt to new technology, and it's become an opportunity for that. To make our training material in a different way, to make our courses in a different way. All that has happened. Second thing is that it also became the special days, relief, volunteering. We had to keep finding ways of keeping the organization alive. Because we can't have our committee meetings. Otherwise, we would have a meeting every month, or every 15 days, or in a village, in a block, in a GP. We can't do that anymore. So we have to keep in touch with our members. So this has become a way of keeping in touch with our members. And again, crisis as an opportunity has come to us because we now have new areas. We've been able to spread to at least 2 or 3 areas where, through our migrant contacts, they have taken us back to their villages. We've also learned how to do crowdfunding, which we had never done. And then another thing that has happened is that local initiative has become very important. Village level programs have become very important rather than central programs, which I think is very good for the union. And then, of course, the last thing that I was talking about, we're thinking of income generation in a different way in terms of setting up alternative markets. Uh, again, now to without patting ourselves on the back, I think another conclusion we have to come to is that what we've done is very little. It's just a drop in the ocean. Free food is being withdrawn from this month. People are not going to get free food. The rations are being reduced. NREG is still very little. It's hardly anything. Other schemes are also practically, not functioning. And on the other hand, the net worth of the richest 50 people in our, according to the Forbes list, 26% is the lowest. I mean, not the lowest, but that's what the people who are making Cyrus Punewala or whatever, who's making the vaccine, his net worth is increased by that much. And Mukesh Ambani's net worth has increased by 71%. And what is her name? Kavita, what is her name? Something, this person, biotech person, Kiran Shaw Majumdar, her net worth has doubled. So the crisis is continuing to grow, and communal politics is also growing. So we are still in a very bad state, and elections are going to come up, and it's going to be really bad in West Bengal now. So the plans that we have for the future are we're doing a hunger watch study. We're studying about 3,000 families, not just us alone, our entire campaign, and we're going to publicize those results to show actually what is happening to hunger. We're trying to go in for litigation, which is not very successful. Courts are not being very helpful. We're trying to file PILs on these issues. Local action we'll of course carry on doing and carry on taking up local action. And we also plan to address the elections to try and ensure in whatever way we can that the issues in the elections are people's issues and not non-issues like for example, the Mandir issue or an issue to do with some local cow slaughter or something like that. All those kinds of things which are not very hugely, but the anti-Muslim rhetoric, so that we can stop all this and it can be a more pro-people kind of thing. And last thing is this, which is something that was announced yesterday or day before. It's called Duare Sarkar. So we don't know whether it's because of us that it's happened. I don't think it's because of us only. But maybe we had a small role to play in this, which is that Mamata Banerjee has decided she's going to lose the elections this time. So now for the next 3 months, she's sending all her government officials to every GP. So they've identified some 12 schemes or 13 schemes, including all the food and work schemes and many pension schemes, etc., etc. And they're setting up camps everywhere to ensure that people get access to these schemes. So we're going to take full advantage of this. And sometimes we definitely feel that maybe it has something to do with our work. Maybe it's a result of our movement also. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. The stories of crisis are quite sad, but inspiring to hear that certain things are working on ground. And as you said, that every crisis perhaps brings opportunities, but we also need platforms like yours so that people can, collectivize themselves and get those opportunities for their benefits and don't lose those. I can see one or two questions on the chat box. My colleague Praveen is actually managing this entire show from backstage. So Praveen, can you display the questions one after one so that, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so basically, I think you already told that you are demanding 200 days of Manrega work instead of.
Yeah. So could I answer that question? Can I answer that question?
Yeah.
Well, I frankly feel Manrega is not being reformed in a positive way. Manrega is being reformed to make it worse and worse and worse and worse. Actually, all the new technology that is coming in, I mean, we were part of the movement to start NREJ, and we've been active in NREJ since 2006. It was much easier to do things at that time for workers themselves to just go to the panchayat and get information and get their demands fulfilled was much easier. It's become a centralized system which is unfathomable, which people don't understand, and it's you just get trapped in all kinds of issues if you get into it. And the fact is that despite all this MIS and all the very complicated systems they have to sort of monitor the program, actually corruption hasn't reduced. At least in Bengal, the corruption is huge, and it's normal for people. It's normal actually. It's considered normal for NREGA funds to be siphoned off, and actually the ruling party's main election funds come from there. So it's I don't think it's been reformed. I would suggest that I think the main thing that we need is basically we need something which is very worker centric. Uh, I think it's an impossibility, but it would be very good if it was possible that the government would think like a worker. What is it that a worker needs? A worker needs wages every day. So let's reform the system to give people wages every day. What else does the worker need? A worker needs work on demand, which is not there. So that is there in the law, but it's not being there practically. That should be ensured. What else does the worker need? A worker needs proper wages. You can't give them wages below market wages and expect them to work on that, and then delayed payment for months and months and months. So if the government starts thinking like workers, then I think the problems will be much less. And that is the kind of reform we need, not the kind of reforms they're talking about right now. Okay, I've done with that, Nazrul. If there are any other questions,
Yeah,
please say.
thank you, Prabir. The next one we can.
Okay. Communal issues. There have been certain local issues where there has been an attempt to get rioting done. All that kind of stuff, kind of tensions have been induced in various places, and but the main thing that has been there is there's been a constant rhetoric. There's been a constant, kind of social media talking, all that, which tries to vitiate the atmosphere. So that has been there. And the other thing that has been there is that there is also a huge. I mean, this is very particularly true of Bengal. Besides the communal part of it, there's violence, which is inter-party violence. So violence between parties, and that is there all the time. On very small things, there are kind of attempts to create tension by both parties, both the main parties, BJP and TMC, and the attempt to create violence in different areas. So we've dealt with that. I mean, in one of the areas that we work in, there was a murder. A boy who was a migrant who had just come back and had just got out of his house, I think 2 or 3 days after his quarantine period. There was a BJP TMC clash and he was murdered. And obviously, that thing, there was an attempt to spread it all around the area, because actually, for both parties, having this tension is good because they kind of get their own people together in the process. So, what we did there was we formed an all party committee and we tried to kind of reduce the tension and inform the police, all that. And we have done that. The all party committee is still there. This is in Daton block of Paschim. The all party committee is still there and it's still functioning. And that is what we try and do wherever this kind of thing happens. We're also we participate in all the anti-communal kind of things that are happening here. Like, for example, 6th of December, there's a on the Babri Masjid breaking day. So there's going to be a program here. So we're participating in that. Our main contention is that if we talk more about people's issues, about work, about housing, about food, about health facilities, all that, the attempt of people to come together will be much more, and there'll be less of communal talk also. That's it, Nazrul.
Yeah. Yeah, Praveen. So I mean, I don't see any more questions, but I have one query which I have been asking to other NGOs also and across India. See, we know that lots of migrants were working in cities and different towns. They have, went back to their villages. And you were also saying that in your working areas also lots of migrants came back. So although one of your campaign is that Grame Thakbo, Grame Khatbo, that will stay in the village, will work in the village, how successful this campaign has been? Are people still there, or they have, I mean, at any cost, they have just now come trying to come back to the cities for work again?
It's a mixed thing. Some people are going back, and some are staying. People would prefer to stay, but very often they are kind of, like, for example, there's one migrant who came from Bombay, who's been in touch with us. He says, I have to go back because my wife is pregnant. She needs an operation. I have to spend 30,000 rupees for her cesarean operation, so I have to go back and earn money. So it's situations like that which are forcing people to go back. And there's very little work here. the number of people who have taken up hawking and small shops and things like that, huge numbers of people have done that. And
Okay.
also started investing in agriculture, which was kind of not an area where they used to invest in earlier, whatever savings and all they have. So that has happened, but that is not sufficient. And ours is a slogan, it's a demand. But I don't, it's not something that we can convince people about unless there is actually work for them. So it's a demand that we are trying to raise along with other people.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there any way? Of course, strengthening Narega is one way, but how can, I mean, do you see in the villages that you are working?
Yeah, yeah. There's
I,
plenty of opportunity to create employment there because the work is. See, agriculture is something which needs a lot of investment and lot of development in still, and it's capable of absorbing a lot of people. Hmm. So for example, we work in areas which are monocropped. So
yeah,
if there was irrigation there, and if there were double or triple cropping, automatically the amount of work that people would get would go up. Second thing is there's a lot of need for agro-based industry. If there were industry set up which is based on agricultural products and which is labor intensive, there would be a lot of employment created. I don't think the whole city-based, urban biased kind of thing is not something that you have to do. You can easily change that kind of model of development. It's not necessary to have that.
yeah. Thank you. I think since there are no questions from the audience anymore,
Hmm.
we also look very tired today.
Yeah,
So,
so that's I'm happy it's over then. It's okay. Okay.
it's
Ah,
always nice to hear from you. So we'll be in touch, and thank you very much, Anuradha ji.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Miss. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Yeah.